Thanks everybody for joining in. Let's get we'll call this meeting to order at 6:37. Appreciate you just holding till we were able to get a quorum. So thanks everybody for joining tonight. So let's get started. We have administrative items. So right now we have the agenda, and so if you look at the agenda so far, we have the Grid Streets project coming up, the OTC bylaws, rules amendments, Region 5 plan coordination. Mark, I noticed that there's a bunch of asterisks on some of these. Did we really want to have like the Grid Streets project or the Region 5 plan coordination to be committee only, or should we open any of these to public comment?
The Grid Streets project you can open for public comment.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So if I could I get a motion to amend the agenda to allow public comment for the Grid Streets project presentation?
So moved.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Is there a second? Sandy? Okay, thank you. Any objection to amending the agenda to open Grid Streets project to public comment as well? Okay. Seeing none, no objection. We're going to say the agenda is amended to allow public comment on the Grid Streets project. Okay, any other changes or items for the agenda for this evening? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Could I get a second?
Second.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Any objections to approving the agenda as amended? Seeing no objection, the agenda is approved. All right, next we have the minutes for our April 2024 meeting. So the minutes were sent out by email to everybody. Does anybody have any major items to send for change to the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Might as well keep it going. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thanks, Eric. You're on fire tonight. Okay, second from Stuart. Thanks, Stuart. Any objection to approval of the minutes for our April 2024 meeting? Okay. Seeing none, the minutes are approved. All right, thanks everyone. So that's it for administrative items. So first up on the agenda is the Grid Streets project. So who do we have, Mark?
Yep, so Marcus is here and can share some more information about where we are with the Grid Streets project and next steps. So Marcus?
Sure. Am I able to share my screen?
Yep, you should be able to.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I am. It's the square with the arrow in it. There we go. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Looks good.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my plan was just to give a brief overview of the project and kind of where we are in the design or in the process of bringing this project to fruition. And I will just go ahead. It's pretty brief. I think some of this will be repeated information for some of you who have been around for a while, like you, Stuart, and others. But for those of you who are maybe new, maybe some of this might be a little bit, maybe some of it will be some new information. But I wasn't really planning on getting too far into the weeds of the design. If there are any questions, I'll try to field those. But let me just go ahead and go through this. This is kind of what I was going to cover, just basically the project scope, current design, where we are, the plan, and go over maybe a couple typical sections for some of the streets. Talk about next steps and also any questions. That was sort of my plan for the evening for this presentation. So the project scope, basically Hale Street from Town Center Boulevard to Baldwin, Nevada Avenue from Burger Street to Duckins, Duckins from Baldwin to Town Center Boulevard, Dare Street from Maryland 175 to Hale, Baldwin Road from Burger to Duckins, and Burger from Baldwin to Nevada. And here's a picture of all what I just said in words. The blue actually is the original. When I move my cursor over the screen, are you able to see that? Anybody?
Yes, I
can see it. Okay, great. Okay, great. So I can point too. All right. So the blue, this was the original scope of the project. And then after that, the yellow was added in So everything in blue and in yellow, that's all included. It's all the stuff all the streets that I had mentioned earlier. Here are some typical sections. Actually, these might be hard to see, but basically it's all the streets are relatively the same, for Burger, Dare, Hale Street. You've got a lane in each direction with the 8-foot parking lane. And then there's a 10-foot wide sidewalk area that is wide, 10 feet wide, so it can accommodate street lights and tree pits. And let's see here, Duckins is the same. But Nevada is actually a little bit heftier, and it's got actually a raised median for most of it. And although there will be some, this is the 60% design. Actually, after we submitted 60% design, we're moving now toward 90% design. Actually, this is going to change south of Maryland 175, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But so those are the streets that will be improved. There are signals that will perhaps be required in the future, but they are not part of this project. They will be put in when they're needed. So you'll see each one of these intersections, and I'm not going to read these off, you can read them, but each one of these intersections will likely have a traffic signal in the future when a traffic signal is warranted. The top 3 here, those are probably those will be put in by developers, and the bottom 3 here, these will probably go in following the development of the Odenton Mark garage. Next steps is the right-of-way acquisition. That's our big next step, and I have it in red because it's a critical path item, meaning that that's the item that is on the critical path, meaning it's the item that takes the longest to get us to construction. These other items, they can probably all be done before within the time frame that it will take to get the right-of-way acquisitions and advertise and all of that. But the right-of-way acquisitions, we've had some delays in getting the plats from the consultant, but we have those now, and a draft of the plats. So I have reviewed them and they look okay for the most part, but I still need to make sure everything's okay with those before I send them over to our right-of-way section. So that's sort of the next step. So the way it works is that process is I get the right-of-way plats that are needed to move forward with the right-of-way acquisition process and the descriptions, and I send those. Once I review them and approve them, then they get sent over to the right-of-way section. The right-of-way agent then gets an appraisal for each property, and based on that appraisal, we'll then make offers to the property owners. And there are a lot of property owners here. It's like over 10, I think less than 20. Usually, and with that many properties, it will be at least a year to acquire them, but it could be longer depending on each property owner. Sometimes property owners are not willing to work with us, and I would imagine with that many property owners that there will be someone or some folks who are not necessarily for the project, and so they may not want to sell their property rights, in which case that will definitely be more than 12 months for the right-of-way acquisitions. Also, once we have the right-of-way, there will be utility relocations, and we actually have to wait for the right-of-way to be clear in order to do most of the utility relocations, because a lot of them are within the property that we're going to acquire. So that's like the step after the right-of-way acquisitions. And interestingly enough, in order to complete the utility relocations, a couple of the structures which we are going to be purchasing will need to be knocked down in order to complete the utility relocations. So, we're getting some right away. There are a couple of buildings that are, or homes that are in the way. And so we'll acquire the home and relocate whoever's in the home, knock it down, then they can complete the utility relocations in those spots. Some of them may be able to done without that, but for all the utility relocations, the poles and the power lines, some of them, that's sort of the sequencing that'll have to happen. Utility relocations will take probably like 6 months. Advertisement and construction, I'd say at least 2 years for construction. So that's kind of the durations. And that's pretty much all I had. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer? I imagine there are. And I'll do my best to field those.
I got a question, Marcus.
Sure.
Can you do this in pieces? I mean, do you have to take everything at once, or is there some way to expedite some sections of it? Would that make any sense?
Yeah, it sometimes does. And that is always, I'm always looking at that, actually. That's a good point. I'm always looking to see, well, okay, is there a block that we can do? Because, maybe the folks on that block maybe they're all for the project, but the block, that's, a block and a half away on whatever street, maybe they're not, we can't move forward with them because but why can't we move forward with this block over here? So that sometimes is a possibility, and we will definitely be looking at that. It will all depend on who will work with us and who won't work with us. So we have to find that out first. And it really, I always try to reach out to people before I get to the right-of-way acquisition process, like during the design, 30 or 60% design. I picked this project up. It was someone with somebody else, another project manager, and I picked it up after 60% design was done. So as soon as I picked it up, I immediately sent letters out to all the property owners. Stuart was one of them. I don't know if there are any other property owners here on the list, but or in the meeting. I got some responses, sometimes didn't, and some of them were positive, some of them were mixed. But even the ones that are positive, I've had it before on other projects, they seem positive, but then once they get the offer, they're not positive. And so you never know until you actually get the piece of paper in front of them and the offer in front of them and see whether they're going to negotiate with you or not and how they're going to work with you. And all that involves the right-of-way agent, who will be soon getting on board on this team to start that process. A person is usually not assigned until that section receives the right-of-way plats, which they will be receiving hopefully next week after I'm done making sure that they're good to go and I'm done reviewing them. So that should happen pretty soon. So I hope, did I answer your question?
You did. Yeah, thanks, Marcus. Yeah,
Okay,
I just trying to figure out, if there's some way we can expedite pieces of it at least. And then I guess, when you notify them of this, do they see the value? Is that something we have to stress, is how it will improve their community or their neighborhood or their environment or their property? Is that something you offer them as to how to look at this?
Always. My goal is to get the project done. I'm the project manager, so that's my job, right? So when it doesn't get done, it always comes back to me. So definitely one of my strategies to try to encourage people to be positive about the project is to present the positives of the project, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But with that many personalities, upwards of 20, almost 20 personalities, it doesn't, a lot of, and I've dealt with a lot of property owners on many projects, and sometimes they just don't care what you have to say. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. It's just a wide variety of people that you're dealing with. If it's only one person, you might have better luck. But when it's up to 20 people, 20 property owners, the likelihood, what I've seen is that, that all of them are going to be unanimously for the project is somewhat slim.
It's rare.
But I always try to, be positive about it for sure. But
Yeah.
some people don't care about the big picture. They care about their property,
Yeah.
which I don't blame them,
Thanks, Marcus.
Sure.
Okay, Kaylee, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Marcus, this is my one of my first introductions to this project. Would you mind giving me just a super quick recap of the proposed actual improvements, the road, what the context of what this project is?
Sure. I'll go back to the plan view.
Yeah, it was just a
Um,
little difficult to see on my end. That's why I'm.
Yeah, you know what I can do? Hold on. I can pull up the design itself and just give you a zoom. I can zoom into like one area. So let me choose. So these are the 60% design that were given to me when I took over the project. I'll just choose one sheet here. Say this sheet here. Okay, so this is, let me zoom in a little bit. So this is Annapolis Road here, Maryland 175. I've got Baldwin over here on the left. I've got Nevada here on the right. And, this Nevada, this is what I was talking about earlier. It's going to have a median. So it's a little bit bigger. You can see the arrows here that tells you how many lanes. So going south, there's 2 lanes here. Going north, there's 2 lanes. And then there's a turn lane as you approach Hale Street. Most of the smaller streets like Hale Street, you see there 1 lane.
Mhm.
Let me zoom in here. 1 lane in each direction with parking on either side. That's the typical section for most of the streets like Hale and Dare. Baldwin is a little bit more. Let's see here. This is in the area of the volunteer fire department. We got Duggins down here, Baldwin on the left, Nevada on the right. Now that I have this on the screen, actually, I'll bring this up because I don't know if you remember during when I was going through the slides, I was saying that this is actually going to change in this area because the fire department is not exactly working with us. You can see the yellow line. Can you guys see the yellow line? It might be hard for you to see. Do you see the yellow line?
I see it.
Yes? Okay, good. That is the existing property line for the volunteer fire department. And so you can see in order to build the improvements as they are prescribed in the master plan, that's what you see on the screen. And you can see that to build the improvements per the master plan, it requires some of the property of the volunteer fire department. But the volunteer fire department hasn't been totally agreeable with us, I'd say. So I'm trying to work with them and trying to discuss with them. And so what has happened is that we're going to have to essentially, so the widening of these roads is actually not needed on day one when the project is built and open. But as development, the traffic analyses were done, assuming the area is developed, right? So that we can know what to propose. As those developments come into play, then that's what you see on the screen is what will be needed. But those developments will not be in play right when the project is built, when it's open. So getting back to your question, Martin, actually earlier, well, can we phase some of this basically is what we're asking. So we are going to have to phase this area. And so right now it's in Nevada, in this area, and Baldwin in this area. I think they are just, pretty narrow existing roadway. Just you get 1 car in each direction and that's it. We're basically going to keep that. Because that's all we can do without going past the yellow line. So that will be a future phase, you could say. So yeah, so we're already thinking about those sorts of things, Martin. But yeah, so that's a change that will be incorporated into the next set of design plans, and the 90% design plans. A lot of this is gonna be shrunken down.
Yep.
In this area. Yeah. So, Kaylee, did I answer your question?
Yeah, so overall, in simplest terms, it's a traffic flow and safety improvement uh, for the area.
And yeah, and sidewalks, and making it fresh, and giving their areas for parking, and to help with development, and to make it a more economically improved area. So it's safety, but it's also other things as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from the committee? I have a few questions then. Okay, so this was actually really helpful in terms of answering one of my questions, which was exactly what does the county purchase in this right of way? It looks like that it's you're purchasing, or your goal is to purchase from the property owners the area necessary to build the roadway improvements. You're not buying the entire plat. Do I get that correct? Or
The
are
entire
buying the
parcel,
plat?
you mean?
Yeah, the entire parcel, sure.
Yeah, no, we don't want to buy entire parcels. No,
Okay.
we want to buy the strip of area parallel to the road that we need, and that will be a combination of fee simple area and easements, temporary easements and perpetual easements, depending on what we need it for. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and is that pretty much the case in every single one of these grid areas that you'd listed off? Like you have the C20, whatever they are, every single one, you have to buy these like strips on either side of the properties.
Correct. Yes, that is true for everyone. We are not proposing any what's called a total take.
Mhm.
We are not proposing to take a total parcel.
Okay. And so I want to link this up to a presentation that the committee previously saw, and it's actually the one that Stuart that your team presented. In terms of, I remember definitively you saying, like, we're going to be giving this land to the county to build the roadway improvements. How does that factor into what we're seeing here in terms of like this right-of-way acquisition versus where the developer's saying we're going to dedicate this land as an easement? How does all of that interplay work? Because I'm trying to align with what the committee gets told during the discussions as, say, a proffer, compared to what you're presenting here in terms of where it's an actual cost to the county. How do we know how all of that's going to play out in terms of what actually happens?
So if I may interject, since you brought me into the discussion, I'd rather not actually discuss any of my business publicly unless I need to. With that said, we are not getting paid for our parcels. They are being taken from us. Okay, so let's be really clear about that. And then we are being required, which we are doing, to do all the improvements along Baldwin. So in return for the land that we're giving to the county, the right-of-ways, rather than them acquiring from us, we are not needing to build Hale Street or Nevada. That's one thing, and the Office of Law has decided that proportionally with the size of our project, that would not be fair to the developer. The cost of that county project versus the size of our development and the size of the parcel. So that's how that Marcus has been great to work with in getting us the right information so that we can present to the committee and properly portray our development, what's going on. But you know, he's got no problem with us. And you know, our we're surrounded on four sides. There's one piece on the corner of Nevada and Annapolis Road that I suspect they may run into some problem with. And it affects us. I mean, it'll end up that we're going to be giving the county 20% of our parcel.
Okay, yeah, I apologize, sir. I completely want to be fair to you and not put you in a difficult spot in terms of providing info. I'm trying to.
Not at all.
Yeah,
I'm more than happy to explain it and Marcus correct anything if I'm saying that's incorrect. But I'm more than happy to explain, the situation that's already been presented to the town center committee and, and it's been properly portrayed by Marcus. I understand your question is the difference between what we're dedicating to the county versus what, is being acquired by the county.
Okay, so in the case of like what the committee had seen previously, then it's in this case, it's like, is there a right-of-way acquisition that's part of your process then, Marcus, or is that part of the development? Like I'm trying to understand because it seems like it's a block by block potential difference. And I'm just trying to understand like how this all works.
Yeah, sure. So Stewart is dealing with a different group than mine. The developers, they got to go through OPZ and I don't know what OPZ is requiring of Stewart. That's, his business and whatnot. They might be requiring certain things, making some certain requirements. What I know, what I do, and this may play out more as we get into the right-of-way acquisition process. If it turns out stuff has been dedicated that I was planning on acquiring, well, then all that would mean was that I don't need to acquire it anymore. That's what that would mean. But what happens is when I go, just giving you the standard process, when I have a project, I do the design, I determine what right-of-way acquisition needs I need for my project. I develop the plats and we go out and we acquire the right-of-way. Now, this is a little bit different situation because Stewart's a developer and he has to deal with OPZ and they have certain requirements. And I don't know, there should be better communication between my group and OPZ, but they'll require whatever they're going to require. And then if it turns out that I don't need to acquire certain parcels or certain amounts of right away that have already been dedicated, well, that's just good for me. And that'll just kind of, those plats will kind of just disappear. That sometimes happens, or maybe it didn't get dedicated or whatever, and so I just move forward with my right-of-way acquisition process. So all that kind of will play out, I think, as we move forward, because I haven't been too privy to any of Stewart's conversations with OPZ. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it helps to just put it all into context, I think, so we can understand how this process is working.
Yeah.
Because it's all very much siloed because we see like one thing at a time, and I'm trying to figure out like what is this bigger picture and how all these pieces apply together.
Sure.
And Jason, I'll jump in here for a second. We're going to try to have somebody from our development division who reviews the submittals from applicants for development projects. Try to have them in the next month or two, and so that might be a good question to ask those representatives from a different division than Sam and myself in long range planning.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that would be a good discussion point to ask about, because I do think I agree with what you're saying, Marcus, that it does sound like that good communication within the county departments is essential to not just create a lot of confusion for developers if they're being told two different things by different departments, at least with regard to those lines. So I think that's a very fair comment.
Hey, Jason, I got one more question.
Sure.
Marcus, what is the average width of this strip that you're looking to acquire? Is it 20 feet? Is it bigger than that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question? Because you cut out. It might be me or you. I'm not sure who, but could you
Okay.
repeat it?
What is the typical size of this strip, the width? Is it 20 feet or greater than that?
There is no
what concept?
typical, each parcel is unique. And each roadway is different. So there's no typical width that we are acquiring. It depends on where the existing right of way is. There is a typical like width from the center line of the road of
Yeah.
where we're going out, and that's usually for like dare and hail, 66 feet, for the, which would mean 33 feet from the center of the road. So it's
Right.
total width of 66 feet. That's like the swath of width of public right of way that we need. So we will require anything within that 66 feet in fee simple. Now, and depending on where the existing right of way line, and that varies per parcel, that will determine how much width we take, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's a humongous amount of property that you're taking here. If there's a road there already, you're just maybe widening that road. So you're adding maybe,
Well, I mean, the fire department, thinks it's a lot, and it's,
I guess so.
and maybe I think maybe it is, because it's only a 2-lane road right now.
Yeah,
On Baldwin, it's only a 2-lane road on Nevada, and now we're making Nevada a 4-lane road with a median, and Baldwin, you can see there are
Dawkins
4
too.
lanes here, and there's parking on one side. So yeah, it's significant
Martin,
in
sometimes,
some cases.
yeah, sometimes a taking like that decreases the usability of the property and what you can do with it in the future. In the fire department's case, they're
Right.
surrounded on 4 sides, so they're getting something chewed away, just like we did on our site. They're getting chewed away on each side.
yeah. I guess
Right.
it could be a
And
building.
I totally understand where property owners are coming from.
Yeah.
So we try to work with them as best we can. And
Yeah.
Marcus, I got one question, and on behalf of Martin, a little bit. We've discussed quite a bit of power lines and things in the Odenton Center, and you said that you're taking some of the poles down. Is there an opportunity to bury those rather than having them put back up?
Yes. Yes.
There
Good
you go, Martin.
question.
You owe me one, buddy.
I owe you one.
usually it's cost prohibitive to bury them, usually significantly higher in cost to do that.
I knew the answer, but I had to ask.
A lot of cities do it. I mean, just because it's expensive doesn't mean you can't do it. It's-
Actually, you can do anything. That's the way an engineer thinks. You can do anything. Just a matter of how much money you want to put into it. There's nothing that can't be done.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, we won't get on that subject now, but it's one of my pet peeves about the development in Odenton. Is the power line issue.
Any other questions from the committee? I want to make sure we have time for the public to ask questions as well. Okay. So I would like to allow any members of the public, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, just raise your hand, and then Mark can promote you to make sure you can ask your question. So does anybody from the public have a question for Marcus on the plan, on the Grid Streets project? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back. Any other questions from the committee members?
No, I just appreciate Marcus's time presenting this and bringing us up to date. Really do. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
I agree. So is there anything from the committee itself that you're looking for at this time in terms of a letter or any other statements, or is this just the status?
You're just looking for just to provide a status update, right, Marcus?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to double check that nothing else is required. And then, so what type of time frame do you think it would be reasonable to have you come back to give us an update?
I'll leave that up to you all. And Mark, Mark invited me, and I was happy to join and to provide an update. So things haven't been going super fast. So, a month would be too soon, just because
I think what our last update on this was at least 2 years.
2019.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so 2019 is 5 years, so.
Hey, Jason, I wonder if there's a point in time that it might make sense for us to get an update if in fact we can influence anything, or if in fact, Marcus is looking for something from us. So maybe look at it that way. When is that point in time? Do we know that, Marcus, or is it just you won't know it until it happens?
Well, I don't know what sort of influence you have, so
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and Marcus, you don't need any public, like required or official public meetings at this point, right? Those have been had, and you're now dealing with the private property owner, right?
Yes, yeah, not at this point. If we have a modification,
Right.
usually is required when you impact some sort of environmental feature like a wetland or even a wetland buffer, then those are required. Yeah, so not at this point in time. We may have one because I think it's been a while, perhaps in the future, but not one in the foreseeable future. We really got to get going. The major next step is really the right-of-way acquisitions, and I feel like that's going to be a big obstacle to the project. That's my opinion. We'll see. Maybe it'll work out, but I do think that's going to be an obstacle to the project that will slow things down. I don't think that, I put it in 12 months as a minimum. I personally, just put that in because that is a minimum, but I think it's going to be longer than that.
So we usually check back in with departments for our annual report sometime over the summer. Jason and OTCAC, that we provide that to you. Then at the end of the summer, you all look to really approve it. Then in the fall, we are changing obviously how we do our annual reports now, but we do have a recommendation in our new master plan that says implement the recommendations from the Grid Street study. So we will be reaching out to Marcus to ask, how are we doing with this project? So while he may not necessarily need to come back in the next 6 months or maybe even year, we will be able to provide the OTCAC and the public an update on this project again, by the end of the summer or so, early fall. So
Yeah, I'm thinking probably at minimum a year before we get another status, because that way we at least have updated information we can discuss for the annual report.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking probably no earlier than May 25, possibly even June or July 25, depending on availability.
Right. And again, that's just
sounds good to me. Just let me know and I'll be happy to be here.
Okay.
Thanks, Marcus.
Okay,
Sure.
that works. Thank you, Marcus. We appreciate the update, and good luck.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, so next on our agenda, we have the review of the OTCAC bylaws and rules amendments. So that was sent to everybody through email as part of the meeting package. And so in terms of layout, we have a couple different ways we can go through the document. We can go through article by article and then discuss it. We could have Mark just talk through what are some of the major changes to each article. Or we could just do overarching. It depends what the committee would like to do in terms of the discussion for this. So at minimum, I think we probably should have Mark or the county discuss here's how they took the previous rules and bylaws, which were 2 separate documents, how they combined them into one to fit the new county standard that exists. And so that way we can at least get the explanation for where we are now. And then I would say if we want to, we can go article by article and discuss, but I think at minimum, we should probably get the first highlight. How's that sound, Mark?
Sure. Yeah. So again, real simply is when the master plan was adopted in February, I think in one of those following months, I did provide an update on specific items that had changed from the 2016 plan to now this new plan, master plan, as well as then the code revisions. And you all, the OTCAC has now been folded into the code, into the essentially boards and commissions section of the code. I think it's Article 3 or 4. It's one of the early articles, not keeping that separate from the article that you see on top of the document that I had sent out a couple weeks ago. But so we've reviewed really for the most part that information about what the changes are, just sort of how it's now been formalized. And the idea at that point, after the master plan and the code was adopted, was now having to update our bylaws and rules to make sure that they're consistent with the code and the master plan. So we were working over the past couple months to do that. And again, we always want to try to be consistent with what the other county boards and commissions are doing, and even more specifically, what other Office of Planning and Zoning advisory committee are doing as well. So what we did was, based on the Planning Advisory Board, who is this again committee that reviews master plans, the capital projects, we borrowed their format and put together then the way they have their format is they put together the bylaws and the rules into one document. So that's why now you see it as one document, and you can really read through it and you see the bylaws of the committee. And then towards the end, you see what the rules are then for how we conduct a meeting and sort of what the rules are for public attendance and public participation. So again, that's all we've really done is essentially copied and pasted those sections from now the new code section, put them in here into this document as necessary and where they're most appropriate. This document's also been reviewed by our Office of Law. They've signed off on it. So I don't really expect any significant changes within this document. But again, as if you all have any questions or comments or have noticed any typos or grammatical issues, happy to go through those with you all.
Thanks, Mark. So just some highlights I wanted to point out as I was going through this. You'll see in Article 1, there's basically the purpose and point of the committee, and it's definitely you see advocate for the visions, goals, policy, strategies, but then it lists off the 3 items that we definitely have to make sure that we include in any letter. In terms of the membership, everybody has 3 years. You can't serve for more than 3 terms, and the appointments are staggered. So that's something that the county tracks is when we all start. So that way everything is staggered to make sure that we have a good flow of members of the committee. You have the responsibilities of chair and the vice chair. The vacancies, it's actually really important now that says vacancies shall be filled for an unexpected term in the manner of the original appointment. So we actually have a process now for how vacancies can be filled, which is an item that was lacking previously, but now we actually have that covered. For the regular meetings, the parts of the bylaws that talked about the Open Meetings Act and the rules for virtual participation, they've been broken apart across multiple sections in this new document. Specifically, though, that all the virtual presence, you have to definitely show your face on camera when we're doing this virtually, just so we can make sure that it is you. So when there is a vote, if you are voting, that we know that it actually is you voting and not someone who's not appointed to the committee. So that's actually very important in terms of making sure that we are proper. The notice of meetings, this is one of the items where the reason why we have to do a confirmation of the agenda and we make any minor modifications is to make sure that the public has adequate notice of what we're going to be talking about, and that we're not doing anything behind the scenes, which is very important for public trust. Further down, you just have more discussion about how the meeting would run, as well as a lot of the language we had for attendees in terms of how there's recordings that are permitted as long as they're not disruptive, as well as how the participation should work in terms of how much time you get, as well as keeping comments on point and relevant to conversation. That hasn't been a huge issue for us in recent history, but I can tell you in the past that that was a big item that the committee, we wanted to make sure got written into the rules when we did the first bylaws, because there was nothing that required any comments to be germane to the conversation. And so it got to be very tiring to have to redirect the conversation back to the what the speaker was talking about. So overall, I see this as just a general clarification improvement. I didn't know if anybody had any questions or thoughts about things that you saw in the document, but happy to have that discussion. Sandy?
One of the questions that I have is, does the county executive select and appoint the members? Is that where the selection process takes place?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. It just didn't say that that the county executive does the selection and appointment.
So Article 2, Section 1, committee consists of 9 members appointed by the county executive, recommended to the county executive by the county, and including 1 member from the councilmanic district. So at this point, Councilwoman Hummer can make a recommendation to the county executive for
Okay,
appointment. Mhm.
thanks.
Used to debate it in this committee. It was very uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, the committee did not enjoy doing that. And so interestingly, I do think your point is well taken, Sandy, in terms of the selection process itself. We don't have anything here that says that the county actually manages the selection process, other than you could technically, and depends how the lawyers interpret it, the including phrase, if you drop it, says that the county council member can recommend basically all 9 members. 1 must be from the district of the OTC, so District 4, but the county council member can recommend all the members of the committee if the council member chooses to. But the county executive does actually have control of the selection process. There's a defined process for applications and all that the county follows. What I don't know, Mark, is if we have to be explicit and state that the county selection process is what gets followed. The one that I think Kaylee, is she the one who set that up?
So Kaylee's moved on to a position with county council, and we are still trying to work to identify who is our representative with boards and commissions. Yeah.
Okay. Does that need to be explicitly stated, or is that covered by another county document that says boards and commissions controls the selection process for all of the committees?
I think so. This point is within Article 3. I'm going to pull up the code section here. Yeah, so Article 3, OTCAC. I mean, Article 3, its title is boards, commissions, and similar bodies. So I'm not sure if somewhere at the very beginning of that article, because I'm just looking at one subsection here, but I'm not sure if at the top of that article it does state specifically that it's run through the boards and commissions for the county, who coordinates the appointment on behalf of the county executive, right? Is that what you're looking for?
Right. Do we need a clear, like saying this is the process? There's no back way to get on OTCAC. It's you go through the county selection process that boards and commissions runs. Because Sandy's right, like the verb that here is appointed. It says nothing about the actual selection process to get to the appointment stage.
I mean, that is it. I'm going to pull up Article 3 here.
So, I mean, the only thing I could say is there is a standard, if you want to apply to be on a committee, there's a standard application for each committee in the county. So you would apply there, and those applications would be, well, whatever the standard practice is for those applications, and then whoever would be the appointing body, whether it be a committee or whether it be the county executive or someone else, would then choose from those applicants those to serve. That's what, and I'm just from other committees, and counts. Same thing with the I'm sorry, the Area 5 committee.
Region 5,
Region
sure.
5, I'm sorry, I just couldn't come up with a name. The Region 5 committee, I mean, I've made application there, so I don't know how they go through that process. They've gotten everything they need from me. And they just have it, and then I guess I'm told one day whether I'm appointed to that Region 5 committee or not, so.
Yeah, and that's a slightly different process because that's not necessarily run through boards and commissions. It is run through.
Understood, but there's a
Yeah.
form, in other words, there's a
Yep.
standard, you can go right online and apply for the Odenton Town Center Committee if there's a vacancy.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
I-
So,
To your point, Sandy, we don't know what happens after that.
I guess what I'm saying is, the last time the resumes came into our possession, we reviewed them, there was discussion. I gather that will not happen in the future.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
My question's been answered. Thank you.
Yep. No, we wanted to make sure that didn't happen anymore, because that just, nobody enjoyed doing that. Like that just, it was way outside of our realm. So yeah, no, you're completely right. Any other questions or comments or thoughts about the proposed procedures and bylaws?
I liked it.
Yeah, they're clear, consistent with other committees, so.
Right.
Okay, so Mark, do we need to vote to approve these?
Yeah, so at the bottom of the document, you do see that we have blanks for approved by the OTCAC on this day. So go ahead and vote to approve, and Jason can go ahead and sign, and I can sign, and we can just keep these on record.
Mark, is this as part of the code?
What do you mean, the establishing bylaws?
Correct.
Yeah, there's a section that says that the committee will establish their own procedures, rules and procedures. I forget exactly where that is.
Okay.
But
I was just
that's
curious, that's all.
yeah, that's how I
Okay.
would interpret this.
Okay.
Can I make a motion that we accept the bylaws as written?
I'll second that again.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy. Thanks, Stuart. So any other comments or thoughts for the record for the proposed bylaws and procedures? Okay. Hearing none, are there any objections to approval of procedures and bylaws? It seems like we're all on board with this language. Okay. Hearing none, then Mark, I would say without objection, the committee approves of the proposed rules, procedures, and bylaws. So I just have to get you a signed copy for you to sign, and then we're good to go.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. All right, so next on our agenda, we have the Region 5 Plan Coordination. So Mark, over to you.
Yep. So again, this is really just going to be a commercial, like Stuart had mentioned there. There is now this Region 5 planning process that's starting. Region 5 being everything from, let me back up even further, sorry, is when the Office of Planning and Zoning did a countywide master plan, got adopted 3 years ago, we couldn't look at all the nooks and crannies of the county. So we decided to break the county up into 9 regions where we could then take a couple years to work with the community, identify what the specific issues are, as well as do comprehensive zoning. So an opportunity to review the existing zoning from 10 years ago and see where we need to change the zoning in certain areas, whether it's up zoning, down zoning, changing into a different type of use zoning district. That gave us that opportunity. So we are on Region 5 right now, which is the 3rd round. So we have our 9 regions. We did, the first round was 3 regions. That was regions 2, 4, and 7, 2 being the West County, 4 being the Severna Park, Broadneck, Lakeshore area, region 7 being the Annapolis area. We're currently underway with regions 1, 3, and 9, 1 being north, 3 being the Severn, Glen Burnie area, 9 being the south coastal area. And so we are now just starting this third round, which does include Region 5. Region 5 is the Odenton Town Center or Odenton area, Gambrels, Crofton area. And so the first step in a planning process is just understand existing conditions. So we have a website that's available to the public. It's aacounty.org/region 5. And if you were to go on there, we do have a short survey up there. It's really just asking what you like, what you dislike about living, working, playing in Region 5. We call that our hub site because we will continue to have opportunities for public feedback up on that website throughout this 2-year process. Like Stuart said, we are currently in the process of soliciting applications for volunteers to serve on a committee, just like you all do, except you won't necessarily be reviewing development applications. What you'll be doing is digesting all the data that not only the Office of Planning and Zoning gets from the public, again, going back to these surveys of what's working, what's not working, how do you envision this community, this Region 5, growing in the next 20 years. And this committee will digest all that information, identify what their specific issues are. We need a sidewalk in this one community. We'd like to see more investment in a community center here. Things like that to help drive not only capital projects, but also some potential legislation, and then ultimately a new zoning map for Region 5. So again, we're looking for volunteers to serve on that committee. The committee will be seated in, you could say even late September, early October. We'll have a kickoff meeting, and then we'll have a series of about 8 or 9 meetings monthly that'll take us into April, May-ish. And then the plan goes through the legislative process. So again, this is just a big commercial to tell you that there is this new planning process from everywhere from Odenton down to the Crofton area. We're tackling land use issues, transportation issues, environmental issues, so that it all goes into this master plan. All those issues are interconnected. There's a website available for you to learn more about the region, some demographic data, other important data, provide feedback, sign up for an email distribution list so that you know when these public feedback opportunities are, how you can be more involved, and ultimately the application is up on that website as well if you are looking to volunteer time. So I think I captured everything. Sam, anything else to add on the Region 5 process?
Not that I can think of. That we'll be trying to get more and more feedback as we proceed through the process. So expect to hear from us many times more in the future as we get this ramped up and going.
Yep, exactly. And again, if you all, again, as OTCAC members, as residents or business owners, or have an interest in planning in Region 5, you all are welcome to volunteer to serve on that Region 5 Stakeholder Advisory Committee. But if none of you are interested, or none of you do get selected to serve on that committee, like Sam said, we'll be reporting back to you every month. We'll be providing you information potentially before these meetings, like we typically do, if we are looking for any type of, we being the Office of Planning and Zoning, as well as the Region 5 SAC, if we are looking for some specific feedback from you all to weigh in. So we want to keep this line of communication open, and make sure that you as a committee are working in tandem with this Region 5 Stakeholder Advisory Committee as well. So I know that's a lot of information. Again, aacounty.org/Region 5. You can take that all in on your own time if you'd like. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions anyone has for Mark? Or Sam? Okay. Yeah, I was scrolling through the website while you were talking about it, Mark. It's there's a lot on here already. So it's definitely like they have the application, a whole bunch of the procedures and the handbooks for what to expect. So you definitely can go into this eyes open in terms of what's expected. So take a look.
One other quick commercial is one thing I love about this process is right now is just that, I think, 2-question survey. What do you like? What do you dislike about living in this community? The next survey that we're going to publish here in the next month or two is a feedback map where you can actually drop dots on a map and say, I love this park, right? Keep, improve this, keep maintaining it. You can say, there's a broken side, you can drop a pin and say, here's a broken sidewalk, fix it, right? And then there's another pin, another color-coded symbolized pin that you can drop. And let's say it's a vacant storefront or dilapidated building, and you say, I wish there could be a swim center here, or you've got some great idea of maybe some county facility or public facility that could go there. And you could say, I dream that this new facility could be, retrofitted, or this new building could be retrofitted into this community center, for example. So that should be released in a couple months. And like I said, I like it because I like seeing things spatially, being able to drop things, again, specifically where there is this need or you've got a specific idea or like. So be on the lookout for that. And I think that's all I'll say for now.
Thanks, Mark. So no, this is good. Definitely encourage everybody to take a look at the website and think about it in terms of participation. So unless there are other questions, we can move on. Okay. So next on our agenda is advocacy and new business. The only thing I have for the committee is just more of just a notification to let you know. So I was invited to speak to the Odenton Heritage Society at their annual meeting as their keynote speaker. So I took some time a couple of weeks ago to spend the evening there, and it was great. Basically, just trying to convey what is the OTCAC, what are some of the things that we've done in the past couple of years. So I talked about the master plan updates, talked about community involvement, because there were questions about like how many people in the community actually participated in some of those processes, and what types of projects or what types of items come up on the agendas of the OTCAC. So just a lot of like, what are we, how do we work, and what are our expectations, what are our thoughts for where we see things going. So for example, I mentioned some of the items that we had just over the past couple sets of meetings, things that we had discussed and reviewed. So for example, like the Ferguson trenching proposal from last month, the Taco Bell proposal from last month, the like the different gas stations like Wawa, and how we've had different changeover on Maryland 170 on Telegraph Road in terms of like Sheetz, Royal Farms, like different ones applying there. The status of the Starbucks was a question, and then the one up by the fire station as well as the one over by the Giant. And then what's the plan for where we see Academy Yard phase 2? Like, have we received anything on when that's going to start and when that's going to become a reality? So just a lot of just general interest in terms of some of the discussions here, because not everybody from the public attends all of our meetings. So I just want to make sure the committee was aware that that discussion occurred, and I think it was well received in terms of just trying to convey information. Does anyone have any other items of new business or advocacy to discuss? Okay. All right. And then I have nothing to report from the subcommittee, but I think what I'm going to do, I have to talk to Abigail. I don't think we're going to keep the subcommittee going beyond the next meeting, so I will have a final readout for everybody for next meeting. So then we have now reached the point of our meeting where we have general public comment. So yes, if you are a member of the public and you'd like to talk to the committee and go on record, then we're happy to have you here. So yep, I see, just raise your hand, we'll call on you. So Darby, I believe this is you, so welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I was just wondering, for areas like development or that are set for development, like the Starbucks by the Baldwin, is there a way to let developers know if they see any turtles or turtle eggs? I would be willing to come and pick them up and relocate them to a local park. I've just seen a lot of box turtles in the area, and I imagine, once development starts beginning, they're not going to be able to move real fast.
I'm not familiar with a process for the public to necessarily interact with a developer in regards to, say, moving wildlife or protecting anything. But let me reach out and I can get back in touch with you.
Okay, thank you. That would be really helpful. I know in other communities, with permission of developers, they've gone in like right before the land is cleared, but obviously that you have to be careful about trespassing and things like that. So I wanted to ask in a forum like this. So thank you. And also, I wasn't planning on going in. I just was wondering if they saw anything, if I could just be notified. Thank you.
Sure.
I'll be happy to notify you if I see anything on our property. I haven't as of yet.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Darby. Anyone else from the public attendees who's interested in talking to the committee? Jerry, really nothing?
Yeah. I was gonna say the same thing, Jerry.
Thank you, Jason.
There we go. No peer pressure or anything. Hey, Jerry.
Well, this is more of my own personal take on something, so I have no idea how far I'll go, but I could not say it from the last or the second to last one where you were discussing about Taco Bell and other developers come in the area. That there is some disappointment that we're getting a lot of ones that are more in the area of fast food or convenience stores, but I personally look at them from comparison to their competitors. For example, Taco Bell tends to now go down a route where they're offering vegetarian, even vegan options, and their selection is quite unheard of compared to their fast food competitors. And if I had to make a choice, they would rank first on my list if I had to go with a fast food. Same thing with some of the community stores. Wawa's more of a premium end, versus other ones which are more of the other side. So just like to put my 2 cents on how you may want to evaluate them on a case-by-case basis instead of just dumping them into a single category.
Thanks, Jerry.
That's actually a really interesting point, Jerry. I, to be honest, had not thought about the variety of foods, like for those with different dietary patterns. But I think that's a really valid point, that we need to make sure that Odenton has a wide variety of foods for all different types of residents. I think, and you're right, we shouldn't make broad stereotypical claims without thinking about it in terms of all the residents in that way.
Yeah, I tried to say this earlier, but unfortunately, though, by the time I got to the end of the meeting, a good number of the community members left. So I want to see if I can get many people to hear that message as possible.
No, that's fair. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Anyone else from the public have any comments or thoughts? Okay, bringing it back to the committee. Any other final thoughts or comments from the committee members? We have, for all of the late meetings that we've done recently, this is one where you technically could still enjoy yourself outside. So any other comments or thoughts from anyone?
I motion to adjourn.
Okay.
One comment.
I take it back.
Sorry, Stuart, just real quick. I know we talked about this, I think Jason and Mark at some point, but maybe bringing some examples of successful town centers, just showing maybe what they did, how they look, how they dealt with certain problems from around the country. I've mentioned the Annapolis Town Center many times as an example that's close by. But there are things in Colorado, there's other states that have, some really nice town centers that they developed. It might be good to help us see what else is going on. So maybe at some point we can add to the agenda, maybe a sharing about other town centers and what they've been able to do.
So Jerry, one thing looking at other town centers, and I don't think it's not a bad idea. I'm just saying it's all about geography. And if you look at Parole Town Center, it's one piece of property. And 20 years ago, we suggested that the county buy all of the core of the Odenton Town Center so it can be put under one developer. And that's how you get these town center developments that are successful, is under one development. It's very, very difficult to do piecemeal. And then it's also depends on the time it was built. For instance, you can't get anything financed now. A tenant's got to pay $60 a square foot rent to get into a space now. Find me a tenant that can afford that. And it's really just the nationals right now that can absorb losses. They're looking at the volume and the long-term picture, and smaller local tenants have to look at short-term. So that's the struggle that we have right now on getting some of the things that not everybody kind of wants in the area, but those are the things that are available right now, and can get us to a certain point and buy us some time until such a time as rates come down. There's new concepts around that are looking for space. There's plenty of people looking for space in Oden, and there really are, but they're all nationals. They're all nationals. Coffee, some of the smaller grocery chains. But I don't know of many local tenants once in a while, but if they come in, it's mostly a restaurant and they want something that's already existing because they can't afford $250,000 or more to build out a kitchen and a hood and everything else that comes with it. So it's tough to compare. You want to be careful. And again, you can get some ideas by looking at a lot of different ones. I agree with that, but you got to be careful not saying, and we've done this with this committee a long time ago, we're going to be Bethesda, and no, we're not, and it just can't be done. So that's the only thing. I don't think it's a bad idea at all, because you learn something from each one of them that you might be able to utilize to help here. But
yeah, maybe
one single control was the most successful way.
Maybe other communities, just like ours, are out there too, and they're trying to struggle with the same thing. So what are they doing? Maybe there's something different that that would help us. And if you look at our mission statement, or our vision statement, I should say, keep an eye on that too, and how we're tracking to align ourselves what we want to be as a city. So I think it's a good idea too, and maybe we can consider how we handle that, Jason.
That seems reasonable. Okay, so something more to think about and
and one other thing, I really think who needs to be pushing this is economic development. Okay, and that's who should be attending these meetings, and that should be involved in. They're the ones that are the marketing arm of the county. Okay, so if you want to have somebody that's really pushing for your area, and they go out to ICSC, in Vegas, and they set up the conventions, and they go to the local ones, and they're the ones that get folks coming from outside of the area looking to come into Anne Arundel County. It's real important that there's a dialogue, and that I know it is, but that Odenton Town Center continues to be on the radar screen. I know that there's somebody that was appointed as the Odenton Town Center person from economic development. Where is she?
That's me.
I'm just making a point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I don't know if that was a rhetorical question or, but that would be me. I'm with Anne Arundel County Economic Development.
Okay, well, thank you. I apologize. I mean, this is exactly your bailiwick. I mean, this is exactly what we need. And Martin's talking about marketing. There's your department. How can we do or execute or come up with a plan? And we don't have to do it tonight. there's a committee. You know, you want to get a little committee together and do something, but that's economic developments.
Well, it's not just economics, though. I mean, if we just focus on that, we get what we get. I think we need to be conscious about what it is we want in Odenton. What's it supposed to look like? How is it supposed to be a livable city? Those constructs are really important. And then if we have a clear vision, it encourages others who have that vision to come to Odenton because they want to be part of that. So it's another way of looking at it, not just the economics, but
Well, we have a vision. It's up to economic development to sell that vision. There's people coming into the county. Here's the town center plan. Here's the vision that we've created. And that's the person, that's the department of the county that's supposed to be.
well, I'm just saying it's not
You
just,
don't have anybody else.
it's not just one person. It's not just one person.
She's not one person.
Well, it's not just one element of this, what I'm getting at.
Well, I don't know where else to start, Martin. We're a volunteer committee. Nobody here, let alone doing what we're supposed to be doing, has the time or to take the time.
Well, I wouldn't put it that way either, Stuart.
Yeah.
Don't cut people off if they want to volunteer, they want to do something.
Yeah, and that's what chambers are for. So that's what the Chamber of Commerce
Well,
is
not
for.
necessarily.
It is. It's a chamber activity.
You're shooting down the idea, and I want to.
No, I'm not at all. It's an idea
Sounds like
that's
it.
executed by a Chamber of Commerce to
Uh,
bring commerce into the area. And then the developers will say, wow, this person and this person and this person is looking in the area. We need to create something. It doesn't go the other way around. The banks want to see a lease first.
Let's do a analysis of other communities and what they've been able to do.
No, I agree. I think that's a good way to go.
Let's see what yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can agree on that.
So I would like to just for some context,
Please.
I really think in ways you're both spot on, but just recognize, so my title is Town Center Revitalization Manager, and this is a position that was created 6-7 months ago for the very first time in Anne Arundel County, and I think that that's actually a very positive step forward for exactly the reasons, Stuart, what you're saying, and Martin, what you're saying. But that being said, we've got a couple, not that these things haven't been, not that our town centers and revitalization areas haven't been important or considered or focused on in the county, but it's had a little bit of trouble getting that staffing up and getting that focus. And that's something that I think the county recognized and is starting to work on. So if that helps at all, I think just to give you some context, and I hope we'll be able to go further and further on specifically having more insight on, like you said, Martin, best practices for county town centers and Stuart, like you said, how to best market our town center areas and all of that. So just wanted to add a noted on both sides.
Great. Thanks, Gary.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. And like I said, I want to see you vocal so we can get some of these things going and out there. And one of the things you talk about revitalization, and here's something for you. So I'm trying to get a residential affordable housing project going, and I was working with a group, and in those projects, you need 4, 5, 6 pools of money to put them together. You need some grants, you need some low interest loans, etc. Sometimes the counties offer you money as well. And Hanover and Crofton have a designation called difficult development areas, but Odenton's not in there, which just blows my mind. And because of that, they weren't able to utilize that pot of money to complete their financing. And I actually met with Julie Hummer on this particular issue last week or 2 weeks ago, to look into how, in other words, who designates those areas and then who do we talk to and trying to get Odenton into that designation so that there's some money available to myself and other developers that want to do projects here. So, I don't know if that's something that you can look into, but when you talk about revitalization, I think that falls under that umbrella of difficult development areas. And I don't know what that definition is all. I mean, Crofton, really?
Right.
I just don't know what the designation means, but nonetheless, it's there and it meant something for us getting our project going and then ending and starting over again. So anyway, just a suggestion and a pot of available opportunity there.
I'm happy to look into that a little bit further.
Great. I'll send you something on that,
Okay.
Kaylee. Okay, I'll send you what I got from the developer so it better explains than I can.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
All right, thank you, and I appreciate you being here.
No problem.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts? Okay. Stuart? Now do you?
Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Is there a second? Okay, Sandy, thanks. Any last discussion? Hearing none, any objections to adjourning? Seeing none, we stand adjourned at 7:58.